So, I didn't listen to any of this. I listened to like the first 15 seconds. But I am very intrigued what Dr. Atnos has to say about the game, okay? Also, by the way, Dr. Atnos hiding his beautiful chest hair, illegal, yeah?
Usually I try and keep a pretty balanced perspective on WoW.
Let's
Hello,
see.
everybody. My name is Dratnos. Usually I try and keep a pretty balanced perspective on WoW. Sometimes I get called out for being a little bit of a shill, a little bit of a positive spin
Hey, just like me, okay?
on things that sometimes the community is reacting negatively to. But in today's video, I've condensed a bunch of things that irritate me all into one video. So we're going to
A bunch of things he hates.
go on a few different rants here about things that, I guess from a glass half full perspective, a lot of these would be easy slam dunk wins if Blizzard were to fix them. That's the positive spin on some of these.
I like it, Dratnos. Saying at least the positive is that they can fix it.
Let's start off with the first one. The first thing I want to complain about is aggro. Aggro being an issue is something that makes sense in a game like this. It's often been over the course of the game's history, especially going back to Classic, aggro was a big deal.
Okay. Sure, let's continue what he has to say.
And then after Legion, aggro was at a pretty low point in terms of how hard it was to hold threat as a tank. And that led to there being some polls where your tank would run in, you'd have Dancing Rune Weapon up because you were playing a Blood DK, and you would you'd get threat, you get a bunch of threat, and then you'd just run, and you'd just kite out the pack until it ended. And Blizzard, I think, correctly looked at that and were like, okay, we don't want that. And they nerfed tank threat. And then since then, they've buffed it a little bit, but we are still at a point in the game where depending on the tank spec you're playing, the gear you have, your skill level with the tank, and crucially the DPS that you're playing with, holding on to threat can be something where you can be doing a reasonable job, you can be having no intention of kiting the pack.
Wait, guys, you know that the volume of the video, by the way, is exactly the same as my voice. But I can increase it above my voice if that is what you would like, okay?
And if you're playing like a Vengeance Demon Hunter, for instance, there have been some bugs associated with this, although most of those have been fixed. And even unbugged, you can still be dropping threat while mostly doing the correct rotation, being on a similar item level. If you're playing with something like a Devastation Evoker, like some melee DPS specs, even if they're hitting the same target as you as well. So what should aggro be? Well, I think aggro being something that tells you, hey, don't kite too much, right? Like if you kite, aggro is going to be a problem that you'll have to solve, or something that somebody might rip threat on. And also being on pull, where it's like, okay, if you're trying to tag in, 10 different mobs from different places, right? You're running in here and you want to get all of these all together in one pull, then that's something where, okay, maybe aggro can be an issue for you, and that's fine. But if you are pulling all these mobs together, your DPS wait a little bit, you get them all grouped up, you're hitting all of them, you're in melee with them, and then your DPS start doing damage, and then 30 seconds later, they rip threat on you on one of the mobs. That's an extremely frustrating situation that luckily doesn't happen all that much to me. My tanks are extremely geared. I have a pretty good handle on holding threat on these.
Hey, he can also just say he's good at the game, okay? I have a pretty good handle.
Different things, and also just, laughing at my DPS players when they die. But this is one of the extra barriers to entry to becoming a tank that I think doesn't need to exist, isn't a particularly fun thing. And in particular, I think that if you're in melee with mobs and you're hitting them, you shouldn't be dropping threat as a tank like that.
Hey.
It should be reserved for when you're out of range. So what could Blizzard do to fix this?
Hey, by the way, quickly, Dr. Atnos, you are 100% correct. Aggro is one of the... I think as a tank player, after many years, I have just surrendered, guys, yeah? If there is something fucked up with aggro and it's not my fault, hey, fuck the DPSer, okay? But there's so many situations, it's just so... It's the most frustrating thing as a tank.
Well, they already have a system in the game that's called the melee threat multiplier, where if I'm in melee with a mob, somebody else is going to need to get a higher amount of threat.
Very important, by the way, the melee threat multiplier is absolutely crucial if you have a battle mage in the team, aka any mage player. And they stand right next to you. They're doing 10 million single target DPS, one target. Then, they're like, I got aggro. The mob turns around, kills the mage, and then you just hear in a voice, aggro.
Threat
happens all the time.
From me than if I'm not in melee with the mob. That could be tuned up further, or potentially having the
Tank.
range associated with it increase from straight up in melee to maybe up to 10 yards or something like that. I think it could still be kind of unsatisfying there. For me, I'd rather see them take a look at the specific specs that are ripping threat from tanks this season and apply further threat and multiplier reductions to them. Devastation Evoker, even though they rip threat a bunch, actually already have some threat multiplier reductions on ability.
That is very true. And Bungly Bear, not Beer, thank you very much for the prime. It is very true, by the way. Main culprit is for sure, must be Devastation Evoker and Arcane Mage, or guys? And maybe Unholy DK at certain times.
Abilities like Fire Breath.
In this season.
Doing some more of that to abilities like Engulf, like Pyre for them could help as well. And I think also some threat multiplier increases to tank abilities that you use in melee could be appropriate as well. So like
the thing is, though, about aggro, it's not just only about the multiplier thing. Is it really a multiplier thing, though? It just reduces threat percent above threat target to full aggro. Wait, you mean for Devastation Evoker? I think it is a multiplier that they do less aggro. Well, I think the main issue is as well that the tank specs themselves just do shit aggro because they're doing such a proportionally low DPS to DPSers at certain pulls, especially AoE. Yeah. Like if you are doing only 3 million DPS, but you have someone in the group doing 30 million DPS, like your multiplier of threat is just not enough to keep it to keep aggro. Yeah.
Like, if I throw Glaive a mob, I don't think I should get a huge amount of threat. If I put a Sigil of Flames under a mob, this shouldn't get me a huge amount of threat, although it should probably do a little bit more than it currently does.
A little bit more than it currently does. Hey, Dratnos, my friend, you can also say you don't get any aggro from Sigil, yeah? But it's okay.
But if I'm in melee with a mob and it's taking damage from my Immo Aura and it's taking damage from my Soul Cleaves, I think those abilities could have double the threat that they currently do associated with them, and that would go a long way towards fixing that problem. So that's problem number one, rant number one. All right.
Oh shit, the aggro threat is done. Okay, so I have to add, I think to this aggro thing, there is a multitude of issues I have with aggro, not only in dungeons. Number one is that Demon Hunter aggro threat is just bugged. Okay, guys? They have fixed some stuff. It is fine. But it is definitely not fixed. Some things are a little bit fixed. Yeah, but it is not acceptable anymore after, I swear, 5 years that this class is still does not work. Yeah, it just doesn't get aggro. Okay? I don't know what to say. They need to fix it, I think, yeah. And the other thing that tilts me a lot is actually aggro on raiding if you're playing certain tanks compared to other tanks. Because in raiding, aggro is a very different thing, let's say, when it comes to a boss fight, right? I think it should not be possible for the other tank in the raid to get aggro over you if you are, for example, going in and taunting a boss, doing your normal damage rotation. The other tank should not be able to over aggro. I think that is a horrible concept that happens because some tanks are low ramping in damage and some other tanks are like Prot Paladin, best example, guys. You take an example, Blood Decay, Prot Paladin, okay? Blood Decay has no big pump burst. They just have Rune Weapon, they do damage, it's okay, yeah? Like they do damage. But Prot Paladin pops Wings, 2 Lights, Hammers, or Hammer of Light, or whatever the fuck they're called. They're doing fucking 50 billion DPS and you lose aggro. Even though the DK taunts, I think that should not be. Yeah, I think that should not be the case, okay? And then the same thing happens later through the fight because Prot Paladin has lower consistent DPS, but other tanks have higher steady DPS, and then you randomly start getting DPS from the other tank because you are a higher constant DPS tank. I think that's so horrible. That should never be the case, in my opinion. In raiding, I think if you taunt in raiding, you should have aggro until the other tank taunts, in my opinion. Okay? I think that is just a thing that, especially in raiding, it tilts me so much, yeah? I don't know. Especially if you end up now playing if, for example, I will play a shit new character, Thief is on his main, I will never get aggro, guys. Okay? It's just what it is. I think in dungeons, it's a completely different dynamic. But especially from my PV as a raiding main tank or whatever, it should not be the case that you drop aggro when you are actively taunting the boss and you wanna like do something. Yeah. For dungeons, I think what Dratnos is saying is completely correct. It is a big issue. They should increase the multiplier when you're in melee, and they should maybe lower it if you're out of melee, because what Blizzard wants to prevent is what happened in Legion, right? Where you pulled the pack, you got aggro, and you ran 20 minutes. Yeah, obviously that is understandable. They don't want that. But yeah, it should definitely be the case that if you are a tank in melee, you should have aggro. Yeah. Okay. Let's see what else he has to say.
Rant number 2, the AoE cap. I'm sure you expected this to be somewhere in this video.
Oh, no.
In Shadowlands, Blizzard AoE capped a bunch of classes. They put a bunch of classes on these hard target caps of 5, or in some cases 8 targets. And they largely backed off of that after it really sucked. Down to just a few specs that are still in the game that have hard caps at 5 targets. And it still really sucks for those people. If you were somebody like a Fury Warrior, for instance, that is hard capped to 5 targets, it's not that you can't succeed in, say, High Mythic Plus as a Fury Warrior. It's just if you are the top 1 Fury Warrior in the world, you'll be able to replicate what the top 700 Moonkins in the world are able to do by rolling their face across the keyboard and
I mean, he's right. I mean,
hitting the Starfall button and hitting all the mobs by carefully selecting these routes with a perfectly crafted comp that optimizes your spec and fights 5 good targets at a time. And I just think that it's a outdated concept to have the AoE cap if we're not actually going to let the specs that are hard capped at 5 be really great at 5. Because as it stands right now, specs like Fury, like, they're good at 5 targets, but they're not great. They're not that much better than, you know, the Moonkins, the Mages, or whatever that are uncapped, and you're watching them, the Unholy DKs, do great damage on 5 targets, and then do twice your damage or triple your damage on 10 targets, on 15 targets. Is there an argument that, hey, maybe people shouldn't be pulling that many targets? I mean, yeah, Blizzard kind of thought that argument, but then when they first implemented the AoE cap, they didn't AoE cap everybody. If that's actually what you think, you should AoE cap everybody.
He is so right, by the way, guys. Also, this argument saying just don't pull that many mobs, and then Blizzard designs dungeons like Cinderbrew Meeres. It's not like you're not gonna pull a lot of mobs, yeah.
And if that's not what you think, and what you instead think is, hey, we want some specs to have a niche of big AoE and some specs to have a niche of small cleave, then how about actually letting the specs that have that small cleave niche be best at those niches? Because as it stands right now, Blizzard has often had seasons where the specs that are uncapped are great at all target counts, but they've really not yet had a season where there's been a target capped spec and you're like, yeah, I might be target capped, but at least I'm doing twice the Moonkins damage on 5 targets. That's never come close to being true, but there's been so many seasons where the Moonkins are doing twice your damage on 10 targets. So either actually adhere to that philosophy of the AoE cap, or just take it away from the specs that still have it. And it doesn't have to be fully. Soft caps on 7 are fine. Soft caps on 8 are fine. Which turns out those specs work out just fine. You know, they're a little bit less likely to be good every season than the completely uncapped specs. But at least it's not as bad as being hard capped at 5 like Fury and a couple of other specs still are in the game.
Okay. I have to add a few things here. Again, I will bring in the Raider perspective, because of course what he's saying is not possible, guys. Yeah, if you design Fury to do twice the damage of other classes on 5 targets than Boomkin, and you have a little bit of a cleave kind of situation, boss fight, where Fury is just gonna do triple the damage of a Boomkin, I mean, the class will be fucking busted for raiding. Okay, and sorry for, I am a raider, yeah. So I think they should just go with removing the AoE cap at this point, or like soft capping. I completely agree with that, but it's definitely not possible to say we just make one class do fucking triple the damage on 5 targets, because that only works for dungeons, and it just doesn't work for raiding. Yeah. Remove raid. That is definitely one thing. Yeah, that is possible. Yeah. So yeah, you mean like Boomkin is busted in M+, yeah. Guys, or you go for the really exciting, absolutely, how do you say, scenic route of M+ design, guys. And Blizzard just designs dungeons where you just get only 5 to 6 target pulls all the time. And then they AoE cap every class. You know, you like run around, you have a room, 6 targets. You kill that. I think then M+ might just die out, but it is what it is, yeah. Yeah, you do the Theater of Pain, guys. Yeah, but for example, in Theater of Pain, you will put walls. Yeah, like between the different mobs, so you cannot pull more. Like you would just put like 5 mobs pulled, wall. Yeah, 6 mobs pulled, wall. Perfect. Yeah. Each room is gated with 5 mobs in it. Yep. That's perfect. Then I think M plus would die completely. Yeah. Just remove all rating and meters from M plus. Oof. Okay. Guys, I already see the next point he's about to say. Yeah.
Up next, it's of course Valor Stones. My question is, what are these accomplishing by still being in the game?
I mean, I have so much fun farming Valor Stones. It's probably one of my favorite things. Wait, I think, do I go here? I go next to Dratnos, I think. I love Valor Stones, guys.
Game, because from my experience, all of my characters tend to basically either not care about Valor Stones because they have enough, or they're at 0 Valor Stones, even though when I woke up this morning, they had 2,000 Valor Stones. Warrior's a great example of this because, sometimes you get 2 two-handers to upgrade, and that's super Valor Stone intensive. But even other than that, I think a lot of people experienced this during the Turbo Boost, where they had a character that was capped at 2,000 for months. And then the Turbo Boost came out, and all of a sudden, they're out of Valor Stones, and they're looking at my guide videos of how to actually farm up more Valor
What a cross promotion right here, yeah? I didn't know Dratnos has a Valorstone farm video.
Stones efficiently, which I guess on the one hand, it's, it makes sense if there's activities that Blizzard wants to incentivize in the game, making them the good sources of Valor Stones. But on the other hand, they keep buffing these sources of Valor Stones that are also the sources of crests, right? Which, in my opinion, if you have the crest to upgrade something, you've earned those crests, you either earned the Valor Stones as well, or you should have earned the Valor Stones as well, and Blizzard is just under-rewarding Valor Stones from whatever content you're getting the crests from, or you were earning the Valor Stones, but you were earning them against this comically low cap of 2,000 Valor Stones, which isn't even enough to fully upgrade a two-handed weapon all the way up its upgrade track. So Blizzard either should think about Valor Stones and be like, okay, yeah.
Comically low cap of 2K.
We would like Valor Stones to come from these specific activities that we want to push players to do, and so this is the source of Valor Stones, and then these are the sources of crests, and hey, go and do these Valor Stones things if you want Valor Stones. I think people wouldn't like that, but I think that's better than the sort of half measure that they're doing right now with it, where that's sort of surreptitiously what they're saying, and then you can maybe get around it. Or two, the cap of 2,000 is just a crazy cap to me. Like, what is the damage that would be done if there was a cap of 5,000 instead of 2,000?
Oh, insane damage to the Valorstone economy, Dratnos. Yeah, you don't understand. Like, if there's more than 2,000 Valorstones per account, the game might just break, guys. Yeah.
Would people be hoarding Valor Stones or, not spending their upgrades and just continuing to run content? No, I don't think so. I don't think there's a case where people have 2,000 Valor Stones and they're thinking, yeah, I wouldn't want to spend these Valor Stones, but I guess since I'm at the cap of 2,000, I'll use these. Like, no, everybody's upgrading when they've got the good upgrades to do with Valor Stones, and it just sucks when you hit the 2,000. Maybe you look at your gear and you're like, oh, I guess I can actually upgrade this. But usually people are just going to send those upgrades anyways, so I don't think there's any bad behavior that people, any hoarding or something that you're going to do, which is usually the reason that those sorts of caps are put in place. And if the cap just went up to something like 5,000, then at least when you get 2 upgrades in the same reset, which can happen very easily, right? You take an upgrade out of your vault, it's Tuesday, and then you go raid, and then all of a sudden your character gets an upgrade or 2, and now your 2,000 Valor Stones are not going to go very far. So raise the cap, increase the amount of sources that they come from, or just delete the damn things, because, again, everything that drops crest, I think, should also drop Valor Stones. So then what's the point of having the Valor Stones as well as the crests? Just let people get the upgrades that they've earned with their crests and, have Valor Stones, I don't know, be for cosmetics. Wrap them into the Resonance Crystal system instead and have Resonance Crystals be your cosmetic thing and buy stuff with that. But I think Valor Stones definitely do not need to exist anymore.
Okay, I can say Mr. Atnos, 100% correct, guys, yeah? The only thing that I would like to add here is why the fuck do my sparks cost 250 Valorstone to create? Why? Any reason for that, by the way? Like, that makes absolutely no sense, yeah? Wait, I can fix Dratnos' face a little bit, yeah? Like, why the fuck does my spark creation cost 250 Valorstones? Why? Someone explain to me, please. Okay, like it makes I don't understand. Okay, I just don't understand. But yeah, I mean he's right. I think like just remove the thing or increase the cap. I mean probably. By the way, guys, I think if they increase the cap, people will not be complaining about it too much anymore because you will just play the game and you will not have too many like or make it like 10k. Okay, and in the beginning you're gonna be running a lot of random ass content, guys. You all know it. You're gonna farm like 6-7k valor stones before you receive a lot of mythic track pieces or whatever that cost a lot of valor stones to upgrade. And then you probably have already farmed like 5-6k, I don't know, 10k or whatever. And then you probably won't even give a fuck anymore if they are there or not, right? I mean, at that point, they can also remove them, right? But if they want to keep them, I think that's probably the best way, yeah? But I'm just saying, like, it makes no sense, yeah? So, yeah. Why does it cost gold to transmog? Okay, I don't know. That's how it is, I guess, yeah. I don't even know. Does it cost like fucking 100 gold to transmog or something? I don't know. It costs so much. Wait, it's 1k gold. Holy fuck. Okay, guys. I mean, I don't know. I'm not in the transmog market. Okay, I'm sorry. Go void for discount. Okay. I am surprised that the chat is more concerned about the transmog gold cost currently than the Velostone removal. But that's great. Let's see what Dratnos has to say for the next thing.
Next rant, it's the Mythic Lockout system. This is another thing where it's a relic of the game from before. So Mythic Raid used to be a special, place that you would go
Paco, thank you very much for the prime.
Into with only your guild, with your preset group of players. Back when cross-realm raids worked, cross-realm Mythic didn't. And that was something that opened up midway through the season, usually after the Hall of Fame filled up. Blizzard have eased off on
I'm actually very interested what he has to say about the lockout system, by the way.
that restriction, but they continue to keep the outdated system of Mythic saving you to a specific instance ID rather than to bosses. So if I have this heroic lockout here, I can go and join anybody else's heroic that's on Cauldron of Carnage or Rick Reverb, or even the bosses I've already killed, even Vexy or One Arm Bandit or Mugsy. I could go do those bosses on heroic if I extended this lockout and just not get loot from them. But with Mythic, if I extended this lockout, if I had this lockout active, I am locked to this specific instance ID.
Wait, I'm very sorry to interrupt, but guys, how the fuck does he create such a lockout and not kill one-armed bandit? Surely he went on an ult to unlock or something, yeah?
And I can't queue up with anybody else, even somebody else who has the exact same set of bosses defeated. I can't do Mythic with that person, which means if you have a guild that, you want to go help them out, kill some Mythic bosses, you are committing your entire character's Mythic week on that guild. If you're pugging Mythic Raid, and the raid kills Vexy and the Gear Grinders, then all of a sudden you can't kill Cauldron of Carnage. Well, too bad. That raid is going to fall apart. One person can hearth out of that pug raid, and then you're all of a sudden, you have 19 people in there. Nobody's going to want to join because of this lockout system. If that lockout system didn't exist, you could maybe fill somebody back in and fight Cauldron of Carnage, and that would be good. And then everybody else could get their 2-box, and then whoever, got that save to just Cauldron of Carnage could go back and get Vexy with another group, or maybe you'd even reset and get them that Vexy kill to help them out after you've done Cauldron of Carnage, something like.
Okay, Dratnos is very, how do you say? He believes in that people would do that, yeah, but that's not happening, guys. If you get invited into a second boss mythic kill, that group is gonna disband faster than anything you can ever see, guys. They're not gonna reset and nicely kill the first boss again for this one person, but it's fine.
Like that. Could this lead to some problems, like in Heroic, where, maybe sometimes people join just for the first boss and then leave, and that's kind of cringe? Yeah, but
that is very true.
You could just fix it the same way as you do in Heroic, where now you refill the group. Blizzard have said, they want to keep Mythic being this feeling of, being an exclusive hard difficulty mode, but I really think that that's already accomplished by how hard the bosses are, and the lockout system working the way that it does right now creates this really awkward situation where if you have the boss difficulty curve the way that it looks in Liberation of Undermine, some people are heavily encouraged to sneak out the back door of the hotel, which for some reason doesn't have a firewall up. And if that didn't exist, it would be an absolute nightmare to pug Mythic. But almost all the Mythic pugs now do that because you really want to fight the harder bosses first, so that then when you get people saved, you then go and do the easy boss.
Close the back door.
And that works out really well. And you actually don't have somebody leave after killing the easy boss and then not being able to kill the hard boss, right? Because you don't actually get saved yet. So that's a really cringe, it's a really cringe counterplay to something that would be even more cringe if they didn't make that counterplay work, right? If you actually had to kill Vexy before you could go to Cauldron of Carnage on Mythic, that would really, really suck. And I know at the first few weeks of the patch, if anybody was pugging, which is pretty rare, that's something that would happen. Now, is pugging Mythic supposed to be something that's super supported by Blizzard? Maybe not, but they made it cross-realm. They opened up cross-realm Mythic from the game.
I mean, he's not really done with the take, by the way, guys. Yeah, the take takes like another 4 or 5 minutes, so I'm just interrupting. Okay, so, I think what he is saying, there's a few things that are theoretically correct, but also causing a lot of issues, right? Because I think he even said it himself. A big issue of no, locked thing in Mythic is that you're gonna pack, you're gonna do a 4 of 8, guys. Let's say Mythic. You're gonna kill Styx and Rick, let's say, and then boom, 5 people will leave because they don't give a fuck about the first 2 bosses. But then you will have to refill the group for the first 2 bosses, right? Which is heavily incentivized if you can do that. If you can't do that, the guys will probably most likely stay because they have signed up for 4 out of 8, if you know what I mean, right? But on the other hand, it's also, if you are struggling, you can never replace anyone because you're kind of stuck with the same guys. So that is kind of a counter argument as well. But I don't know. I think it is really weird. I think it's really weird I think it has some positives and also some negatives to have this situation, which would, the positive about not having a Mythic lockout would for sure be that you can make it more puggable and more accessible for people because you can just try it out, right? You could just try out pugging the first 2 bosses in the beginning, and that's it, right?
Whoa. Here is a share of the price pool.
Thank you, Mike, for the $5. Actually, $2.5 or whatever. Yeah, appreciate that. That's a good cut. Thank you very much for the 52 months. Yeah, there you go, guys. I guess I got paid. Yeah. Okay. That's perfect. So, yeah, but guys, back to we should have read the contract. I guess so, guys. Yeah. So back to the Mythic lockout. I think it is theoretically good, but it has a lot of negatives and positives. I'm interested what he has to say for another 5 minutes. Okay, let's see.
Get-go. What's the problem with letting the difficulty of whether you can pug these bosses be based on how hard the bosses are, rather than, the stupid lockout restriction? An argument that people will make against this is that it would mess with the Race to World First, or the first few weeks of Mythic progression for really good guilds, even like my guild. We would be looking at doing something like, yeah, let's do some Vexy splits, right? Vexy's really easy. We can just kill it with, 5
Guys, he knows exactly what he's saying here. Look at him smile.
5 mains and 15 alts 4 times, and then re-merge our group together for the harder bosses later. And yes, that is something that you would be able to do if the Mythic lockout were removed in the first few weeks. But what you could do is just not do it for the first few weeks, because
Dratnos.
Nobody's really pugging Mythic anyways for those first few weeks, as I mentioned, right? It's a very hard thing to do, is to pug Mythic Raid when everybody is just getting started with the patch. By the time that it's later in the patch then, when people are actually looking to pug Mythic, that's when you could remove the restriction, which I guess I understand that, Blizzard are trying to move away from these switches that they have to flip halfway through every season, but I still think that would be a huge increase in accessibility. It would let people who, top out at AOTC instead start dipping their toes into the first few bosses of Mythic. And who knows, maybe some people would have a lot of fun and be like, yeah, actually, this Mythic thing isn't actually all that scary and it's a lot of fun. And, maybe I'll try and join a Mythic progression guild instead next year. That could be something that would really help people get into that ecosystem. So I feel like that would be a very good change they could make.
Okay. So,
Next rant here.
one sec. I just wanted to pause on a good camp for Dratnos. Okay. So, I mean, basically what he's saying is for the first few weeks, you can't do mythic packs. Well, like they have a lockout and you're bound to whatever it is. And then after a few weeks or whatever, how long Blizzard feels like it's cool, you can. Which is probably kind of true. I think that wouldn't be too bad. If they would have done it with the turbo season, for example, I mean, that's probably too late, I guess. But if they would have done it after like a month or two, it could have been quite interesting. I think they could do this as an experiment, personally. Okay. Like, just do it in like that next season, like in season 3. I think they can just slam it and see how it goes. I think it would be quite interesting, to be honest. Because, I mean, I would be intrigued to see if this encourages people to do Mythic, or if this encourages the groups to become even more elite and have like all, because they will be like, holy fuck, we don't want to remake the group and refill people or whatever. So the groups will become even more elite because you're not going to be sticking together to the people. Yeah, or you just get kicked after if you cause a wipe. Like in sticks, if you roll into a ball, boom, kicked. Yeah, and you're next, right? Yeah, I don't know. I think it's very difficult, okay? There will be a lot more mythic sales. Well, I guess you're right. Okay, yeah. To be honest, guys, I don't know about the sales, yeah? Everyone is so stuck on these sales. It's not like we have been selling mythic since 5 years, and if we get some more or less here, there, like, to be honest, I don't give a fuck, yeah? It's the thing we have been doing since so many years. But maybe people are, like, stuck on the sales topic or whatever. But yeah, also, by the way, I need to scroll up. There was a sub earlier that I didn't thank. Letter Beta, thank you very much for the prime, by the way. Appreciate that. You wouldn't get loot with locked people, I guess. Yeah, that's true as well. But you can sell whatever in this game, guys. Yeah, you could sell the fucking 8 out of 8 box only or something. I have no idea. Okay. Yeah. Kulano, thank you very much for the prime. So it is what it is. One MDI yesterday and is already skipping subs. What the? Guys, I just got paid for the MDI from Mike. I got a Twitch sub. So I'm rich now. Solano, by the way, thank you very much for the prime. And let's continue. What is this next trend?
About the kick change. So this was a controversial change that they put into the game recently, where when a mob has a cast, if you stop the mob, it doesn't go on cooldown anymore. Now, for the history of dungeons in the game, generally that hasn't been true. Generally, if you stun a mob, it will not recast whatever it was casting when that stun ends. But Blizzard have made some good arguments of like, yeah, hey, you know, for consistency's sake and not making stuns and AoE stops, the meta for M+, you know, we want to make them less powerful. So they're not actually gonna stop the cast anymore. They're just gonna temporarily stop it, and then the mob's gonna start their cast again as soon as they come off the stun. Unfortunately,
wait, did you sub yesterday? I apologize.
That's actually not what has happened. Stuns and AoE stops have become more powerful rather than less, as a pack has gone from needing one AoE stop to stop all of its casts to now needing constant AoE stops if you want to stop those casts from going through, because otherwise the mobs are just going to recast. This has also led to the effect of Sigil of Silence and Solar Beam, mostly, although technically Warrior can do this as well with Disrupting Shout. It's a little bit more costly to talent this. These effects that actually AoE kick end up being super duper OP, because when you think about something like a Shockwave, you know, Shockwave is going to stun mobs for 2 seconds, and it's going to stop their cast for however late into that cast bar you go, plus the 2 seconds of the stun. Whereas something like an AoE kick, you know, a Disrupting Shout, a Sigil of Silence, a Solar Beam, are actually going to be able to potentially stop multiple enemies for 10, 15 seconds, however long it puts that spell cast on CD. So I don't think that was intentional. I don't think that making Sigil of Silence and Solar Beam more OP was an intended part of this plan. And I also don't think that, you know, again, Shockwave, something that has gone more important now is coordinating your usages of the Shockwaves. Now, they could also fix this with dungeon design. If we had pulls like this Triple Thunder...
Oh, no. What's that? Yeah. Gibbs, thank you very much for the 7 months.
...pull in the Rookery, and we looked at these mobs and we were like, okay, We are going to reduce the damage of Lightning Bolt. We're going to increase the cast time of Lightning Bolt. We're going to put a cooldown on Lightning Bolt so that the mobs don't chain cast it at you. We're going to make that cooldown longer. Those would be ways that maybe this could work with the kick change. But if you're going to make packs like this, I think that it used to be gameplay that you'd go into a pack like this and be like, okay, I'll stop this kick, right? And you hit the mob with a kick or a stop and a stun, right? Or anything like that, a stun, a disorient, anything like that would count as a stop, and that would be great. And if you were doing it in a pug situation as well, you could roll up to a pack like this and you could be like, I'm going to be helpful. I'm going to press my shockwave button.
Jay, by the way, thank you much for the tier 1 or the converted to tier 1
button. Now, if you go into a pug run like this and you hit your shockwave button there and your mage hits kick at the same time, you've actually griefed. You
You griefed the mage, guys. And as you asked, thank you much for gifting a sub to One Squirk. Thank you.
Always had griefed a little bit because you'd use 2 resources when you only need 1. But now if my shockwave hits the mob before my mage's counterspell hits the mob, it's actually going to not be locked out and it's going to start casting again right out of there. So the premium on really technical coordination of your group in a not particularly fun way has gone up. Something that, if you look at Blizzard's desire.
By the way, guys, first of all, Jay, thank you very much for gifting another sub. And I must say, I think nowadays it's just when I packed sub dungeons, the TLDR was you just fucking send all the AoE stops all the time, and then you kick once in the beginning and once in the end. And then it's just good luck gaming, yeah.
To remove our ability to track each other's cooldowns. That philosophy is entirely at odds with doing this sort of juggling of mobs casts with AoE stops, the way that it works in this post-change world. So they should either revert this change, dramatically nuke how often there are mobs like this that spam Lightning Bolt at you. That's another option. And then regardless, they should look at it and they should be like, do we really want to make Solar Beam and Sigil of Silence be the only abilities in the game, and I guess and Disrupting Shout, that actually work the way that everything used to?
Holy fuck.
Favorite tank. Can we have raid tank guide soon, pretty please?
Raid tank guide. Monka as burning. Thank you very much for the prime, by the way. A raid tank guide. I could look into maybe doing like a PTR raid tank thing for next tier, but not this tier anymore, I think.
When we look at the meta this season and we see Vengeance Demon Hunters and Moonkins everywhere, there's a lot of good reasons for that, but it certainly doesn't help that Solar Beam and Sigil of Silence actually work on these things in a way that's fun. And I think that's the big thing, is when you think about doing keys, it's fun that I can hit Stormbolt on a mob and be like, no, I'm stopping you from doing your thing. And then the Stormbolt finishes and I've succeeded against that. And turning that instead into like a 3-second, pushing that problem down into the future makes the pull a lot less fun and a lot more stressful. So I think that it's one of those classic Blizzard changes that you look at it and you're like, yeah, this makes sense. But also, despite it making sense, it's making the game less fun. Like there's a lot of logic, a lot of lines that they can write about why it's supposed to be more fun this way, but just, at least in my experience, it's less fun to play the game that way. Up next.
Okay. I can say one thing about this. He's right on a lot of things. There's 2 big issues though, I think, with this whole interrupting CC kind of change situation. Yeah. Number 1 is that, like I said, Solar Beam and actually kicks are becoming really OP. But also, because of how mobs are coded nowadays, there's 2 type of mobs, right? Everyone knows. Chat, everyone knows, right? You guys also know everyone is smart here, right? There's 2 type of mobs. One type of mob who doesn't give a fuck if they, how's it called? Yeah, Watermelon, you gotta give it up. So one type of mob who doesn't give a fuck if there is 20 other mobs that want to cast a spell, they will cast the spell at the same time. AKA, the best example is probably Motherlode, the Alchemist. They will all cast the transmute kind of thing at the same time if you put like 20 of them, right? But then the other mob type that Blizzard has created, that's mob type number 1, which was the most common in the past. The other mob type that Blizzard has created is the mob type like the divers in Is the divers in Floodgate that have a kick, but they will never cast at the same time. They will only one guy will cast, and then you can kick him, and then the next guy will cast, and then you can kick him. Yeah. So the big issue here is that if they create these kind of different mobs, especially for interrupting, is that the mob type, like the divers, right? They're perfect for any group. You can play them, and AoE silence and stuff is also not as powerful because, I mean, it's just one kick all the time. Again, you can argue that you can just perma single stop and AoE stop that one target, and it is achieving basically the same thing as the humongous pull, right? But at least the divers you can play and you will not be getting completely destroyed. But if you pull 20 alchemists and you don't have a silent sigil or a beam, at one point you run out of AoE stops, every cast goes off and it's Jova. Yeah. Which is obviously shit. The same thing goes in not Motherlode, in Darkflame Cleft with all the fire guys, right? You can all stop them, they all line up, and you kick them once or line them, and boom. Yeah. And I think that is the main issue of the whole interrupt change situation or whatever. That I think it would be interesting if they all make the mobs desync, so you can actually kick them as well. But it also comes down to dungeon designs a lot. Because some dungeon designs, like imagine you have the alchemist and they're all desync. To be honest, it will be the same outcome of how you play the packs because there's just too many of them in the dungeon in one pull and it's too efficient. So you will end up playing 20 of them and the outcome will be the same, just that you single stop a guy instead of AoE stopping. So I don't know. It's really weird. I guess the value of AoE silences goes down though if you have a desynced mob type. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was with the guys in TeamSpeak yesterday. Okay. And Mochi, thank you very much for the 2 months, by the way. Let's see Dratnos' next brand.
Death Knight raid buff situation. Why doesn't Death Knight have a raid buff? Well, maybe it's...
Holy fuck, that was a start, guys.
Because Death Grip is a really powerful effect that we consider to be basically the Death Knight raid buff. Okay, if that's the case, why don't we design any fights
I think he's very passionate.
where Death Grip is good? We have a fight called Mugsy where we're spawning these ads from the Goblin Guided Rocket, and these things aren't Death Grippable. We have Gallywix Mythic where these ads spawn, and they spawn already exactly all grouped up where you want them to be. No need for Death Grip, no need for Mass Grip. So what's the point? Where are people going to play Death Knights in Mythic Raid? They're not. They're not playing any of them. Maybe you're going to play them on a fight like Styx Bunk Junker. You're going to have your tank swap over to Blood DK. But you're just not seeing Death Knights played on these fights in the raid, and you're not going to in any tier unless they either A, design a fight so that Death Grip is good. Now, it doesn't have to be OP, but at least doing something like, honestly, making the Volunteer Rocketeer Death Grippable is a huge thing. Like, why is that not true? You just have a mob that casts Disintegration Beam, does a lot of damage on somebody. It's not the end of the world. Everybody deals with it because it's unCCable. But if an argument for playing DK was, oh, right, we can just grip this under boss and kill it down, at least you'd be thinking, it's nice that I have a Death Knight in my raid. I would like to add a Death Knight to my raid. It's
nice.
But as it stands right now with the design of these bosses, there's no reason for you to be like, oh yeah, I want to have a DK in my raid. I mean, I guess AMZ is good, but almost every class these days has something like that, right? Like Zephyr, Mass Barrier, something create Time Spiral, right? All these different effects that everybody has, Rallying Cry, Darkness, right? That are all on a similar power level to Anti-Magic Zone, depending on the fight, depending on whether it's physical damage or not, which in a lot of cases it is. So either give Death Knight a raid buff. At this point, everybody else has got one. Let's give Death Knight one. Or design fights that, intentionally to make it so that people will think, I would like a Death Knight for this. And do that consistently for bosses in these raids, for end bosses, second last bosses in raids, because otherwise Death Knight gets relegated to being the spot where if you're in a top guild and you're the Death Knight main, every 6 months you're just flipping a coin between whether you get a vacation or whether you're actually getting to progress the raid. Our next one is...
Hey, I mean, he's right, guys. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the Rogue has a really good raid buff. Yeah. Like, guys, of course, DK is played, by the way. Of course, not, how do you say? Like, DK is played a lot of times in a lot of different content, yeah? But he is right that especially in high-end raiding, DK is not good in a lot of cases, okay? And I think a bigger issue is that, especially as a DPS DK, is that you are fighting against a tank DK who has a better grip than you, less cooldown, and it's easier to use on a tank than as a DPS because you can also spec into mass grip. Yeah, meaning like you're competing against a better version of your own class as a DPS, and you have better AMZ as well. It's it's really weird for a DPS DK spot. Yeah, for sure. I must say. Also, DP like I don't know. Yeah, you're always competing against tank DK. I think that's the bigger issue for DKs, that you're competing against a better version of your own class on the tanking spot. And 95% of the time, one tank spot is easy to swap because you play Propeller plus X. And that other tank is most of the time a raid buff as well, that you can just swap around. Yeah. So, of course, now also another thing is, because it was brought up in the chat, that is Red Paladin. Okay. Red Paladin raid buff with the current state of Prot Paladin and raiding. I mean, guys, it's always covered by Prot Paladin. Okay, let's gotta be honest here. It is what it is. Okay, like Prot Paladin is played in high end raiding, and it has the buff, and Red Paladin does not have a buff anymore, basically. Yeah, but it is what it is. Okay. Let's see what Essie has to say.
Is a small rant, but what's going on with the reps in Undermine? They doubled the rate that you achieve reputation with these guys, and I do a decent amount of stuff. Like I've been doing my 3 weeklies.
Holy fuck, what a hardcore swap, guys. Going from all the raiding and dungeon rants to a fucking rep rant.
Every week. But if you actually want to farm a bunch of, like, if you want to get exalted with all 4 of these cartels, not to mention the 5th cartel, which isn't even shown here, that requires so much gaming, so much doing of these, like turning in chat lists to the cartels instead of to the machine, and doing these world quests that are giving 300 rep each, the side quests that are giving 200 each, with the old reputation system where you need to get like 40,000 rep to get all the way up to exalted with these reps. And these ones, for the first time, actually have Paragon rep rewards, which, you know, makes sense because the Paragon rewards for these other reputations just have nothing in them, right? It's like 1 Radiant Echo and then 2 potions or something like that. But it's weird because it feels like these Paragon reps are ones where you actually can fill out the Paragon a few times pretty easily. You know, you just do some normal stuff, normal weekly reset stuff, and you can get a decent amount of progress towards these Paragon reps. And then the Cartels of Undermine ones are much more cringe. And also, I got Bilgewater to Exalted. I don't want to keep choosing Bilgewater now because I want to get all the others to Exalted. And that one actually, now these ones actually do have mounts behind Paragon. So this is a small deal, but it is still very confusing to me. I can see myself coming back to Undermine, you know, even long.
Guys, he's forgetting the most important part about these reps. I swap my character every week that does these quests, and you know what you get from them? Valor stones.
Beyond 10.2, not because I really want to, but just because this is by far the least painful way to get rep, is just doing these 3 weeklies. They give 2,000 rep each, and then, you know, not touching the side gigs that give 200 each, and trying to farm up these the farmable sources or the world quests that only give 300, and that just seems a little off to me. That seems like a small thing that just doesn't make much sense about this patch, especially when you factor in the fact that they literally doubled the rep income for all these reps, and it's still this slow and weird. I feel like, you know, side gigs should be giving 1,000 each, not 200, something like that. All right.
I must say, he's right. I also don't understand why we need to farm so much rep. Okay?
For my next rant,
it is definitely a lot of rep, okay? 100%.
And I'd like to begin with a question. Which embellishment...
But there's not too much to say to this, guys. I think he is right, yeah. Like, I don't understand. The only thing I don't understand, by the way, like, I understand if the grind is long, okay? I think it's fine. The one thing that I don't think is good is that they bring back Paragon mounts that are not guaranteed. Like, it should be that you fill up the bar one more time and you get a mount, for example, yeah? I think that would make sense. But why is it RNG? I think Paragon mount is just horrible. And why is this happening to chat? I am trying to decide what to get. A Puzzing Cartel chip or a 681 weapon. Wait, what? Wait, a Puzzing Cartel chip is the ketchup. Or? Wait. Or do you mean sockets from the vault? Wait, I'm so confused. You can get both of those, yeah? Wait, who even posted this? Asking? Wait, can you clarify? I'm very confused what you're asking, okay? let's continue what Dratnos has to say about his next rant.
Embellishments are you wearing on your character right now? I can be reasonably confident that it's probably either Ascendance and a Writhing Armor Band, maybe Duskweave, maybe Dawnweave, maybe some Prismatic.
Oh, he's talking about embellishments. One sec. Oh, or best in slots. Oh, yeah, you would want best in slots. If you can buy Mythic best in slots, you would want to buy it. If you can't, you just go with a Mythic weapon from the vault or a crafted weapon. Yeah. But Mythic best in slot is the highest thing for Guardian Druid. Yeah.
Ascendance are you wearing on your character right
Okay.
now?
So let's
For my
see.
next rant, I'd like to begin with a question. Which embellishments are you wearing on your character right now?
Before he says anything, I think embellishments suck ass, okay?
I can be reasonably confident that it's probably either Ascendance and a Writhing Armor Band,
Such a
maybe
horrible
Duskweave,
system.
maybe Dawnweave, maybe some Prismatic Focusing Lenses, maybe you're some kind of cringe PvPer and they do different stuff,
What the fuck?
or just maybe you're a tank and you've got the Adrenal Surge clasp and you're feeling awfully stupid as the Delve Belt is coming out soon. Those are kind of the main options. Did you know that there are a bunch of really cool different embellishments that they've got this time around?
No, is he gonna talk about all the useless garbanzo that they add every patch and the only people using these embellishment sets, I swear guys, is the PvPers, by the way. The first time I saw someone use one of these sets was the AWC, I think it was Trill and Was playing like a 2-set embellishment set where they were sending like a snowball on someone or something. I have, and hey, that's not true. And the other time it was used was in Dragonflight. The Azure Weave set was played on Mage and also Shadow Priest at one point, I think, as a 2-set. But I think those are the only two things that I remember where people were. Oh, that's not true. And at Dragonflight, I think Enhanced Shaman was also using the 2-set at one point. Okay, but I think since Dragonflight, these 2 sets have not been used, from my knowledge at least.
There's these set bonus ones, the Fury of the Stormrook set that you can get. There's boots, that give you speed and do holy damage after you get enough stats.
Why does he praise these boots, guys? Taking damage has a chance to grant you Sanctified Swiftness, granting you 51 speed. Stacking up to 10 times. At 10 stacks, release the energy dealing holy damage. 51 speed. Congrats on yesterday. Thank you. Yeah, the guys played insane.
There's a lot of cool things here, but basically none of them are things you would ever consider actually using because the numbers on almost all of the cool embellishments in this expansion just suck. Now, could there be an argument that like, hey, these are for casual players who don't care as much about the fact that this is simming less than, Ascendance or something? Yeah, maybe, but I feel like casual players don't really want to, deal with the problem of juggling around a 2-set, for instance. They're going to have less access to tier of their choice, so the tier that drops for them is just going to be what they're wearing, and almost all of these set bonuses are filling some of your tier slots as well. And then this look at this 2-set, right? You get a floating orb of fire pollen nearby. Stepping into the orb gathers it, increasing your highest secondary stat for 12 seconds. Up to 2 allies who step near you will also receive a little bit of a secondary stat. Now, does that effect, which is reminiscent of things like Treacherous Transmitter, right? Those sorts of things.
Wow.
Is that kind of thing something that our more casual players will enjoy doing and be like, yeah, you know what? This does less numbers, but I'm willing to do it? Or is this the kind of effect where it's like, oh, maybe a high-end player will look at this and be like, yeah, I've got a fairly simple rotation. I feel like I'm in control of my rotation. I'm willing to take on this extra quest and this extra complexity now in my rotation in exchange for a small DPS increase. I think that's what would make sense for this kind of effect. So if you're going to make embellishments that suck like this one, either actually make it have some excitement value for casual players, right? Like do something that is have it be a lower number, but something actually really cool, the kind of thing that is exciting to casual players. Or if you're going to make it this sort of weird, fiddly, extra gameplay challenge thing, then it should actually reward you with more damage by doing that thing than Ascendance or Duskweave or whatever, Dawnweave, any of those kind of things. and or make some embellishments that are cool defensive ones.
True.
Something like that. Obviously there was the Spore Cloak incident back in season 2 of Dragonflight, and Spore Cloak was super good.
Not the Spore Cloak.
Maybe they don't have to be that good, but actually making it so that somebody could decide, hey, I'm a tank, I'm going to put on this Captured Starlight embellishment. I was thinking about doing it, and then I just looked at the numbers, and I was like, oh, I really can't do this. Like, I had a lot of characters where I'm just looking at it, I'm like, man, I don't really have great, strong offensive embellishment options. Yeah, let me look at this defensive one. Oh, it's just such garbage that I can't consider it. That's
Guys, isn't that the case for 95% of the embellishments? You look at them and you say, man, this is such garbage. Why do I even look at it? And then you end up going with stats either way.
sort of thing just makes no sense to me. So I'm just so confused about what they're doing with the embellishment system. The item level side of it as well, the fact that you have to put on a piece of gear that goes lower eye level than Myth does, and then there's the ascendances which go on weapons. Obviously, the fact that this only matters to players who can get access to Myth weapons, which for a lot of players, you're just waiting on Vault RNG to see if you can get one of those. I get that. And I think it's nice that you can craft into these slots and replace it. But something like making your embellished slot have +3 item level so that it isn't lower eye level than what you can actually upgrade with your gear, I think would be a really nice buff to make it feel a little bit less bad, especially, dude, I know.
Yeah, but then you're just crafting the best gear in the game.
Players who crafted their weapon or something, chest piece, shoulders, some big slot like that, and then they got it in their vault the next week, and it's a super feel bad because then you take that item and your craft is bricked for a few weeks. So yeah, I think having an item be embellished, give it +3 item levels, would be a really cool way to.
Oh, he's only talking about embellished. Never mind, I didn't understand that.
Actually have it be a little bit less of a feel bad and a little bit something more you can commit to doing. And then they could nerf Ascendance or make it go on stuff that isn't just weapons, because right now it feels like Ascendance is a OP embellishment that's balanced by the fact that it goes on weapons, and therefore you're giving up potential item level on your weapons compared to a fully upgraded Myth weapon, which I think is a fine trade-off in a world maybe where there are other interesting embellishments, and then the problem is they just didn't actually make any other interesting embellishments this expansion. So yeah, I'm very confused about what the idea was with embellishments, because it feels like you go to, there's a reason why when you go to In-N-Out, their menu has 6 items on it, and it feels like this is going to In-N-Out and their menu still has 6 items on it, but they've also randomly added 50 extra items that are just all garbage. And it's like, you're still just going to pick between these 6 ones, but what are these other ones even doing here? And the fact that there's now sushi on the menu at In-N-Out, either I'm going to accidentally try it and then, throw up and get food poisoning, or, they could actually make it good, and then there'd be sushi at In-N-Out, and that would be cool. I would eat that if it was good. All right, next.
What a take! Right there, guys. Hey, I mean, it works. He's right, guys. Yeah, I mean, he just wants some sushi at In-N-Out. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, he's right though. Yeah, embellishments are for sure one of these things that are just it makes no sense. Okay, you know what I think what is very weird though to me is 2 things, okay, that have to do with crafting, not specifically embellishments. Number 1 is the 2-hand crafting situation into a new patch. Guys, as we all know, or maybe you guys don't know, okay, is most of the time in the first Mythic week, 2-hand users are not allowed to craft a 2-hand weapon. Yeah, because we don't have the sparks. What is your daily job? You're looking at it, yeah? So, basically, the situation is, we should just get 2 sparks in week 1, in my opinion, okay? Again, it does give a little bit of a decrease still to the 2-hand users, but they will also get a bigger weapon damage increase. But still, I think it should be the thing that if you go into the Mythic week, every class should be able to craft either a 2-hand weapon or a 1-hand plus a other slot if they would want to. I think that would make a lot of sense, and it would make a lot of classes way easier to play. Okay, a lot easier to gear, and it would make things a lot better. Okay, but the other situation is the embellishment situation, which is completely horrendous in my opinion, Because what ends up happening is that you go into a new season, you craft a one-hand weapon, guys, and we all know it, okay? Don't lie to yourselves, guys. You will all craft a one-hand weapon in the new season because it's fucking high item level and it's a mythic weapon and it's gonna have Ascension on it and it's gonna be OP, okay? You all know it. And then, because you only have one spark, you end up having a bracer, 95% of the time, that has a socket from last season and the embellishment on it that improves your Ascension, and that's just Biss. And that has been the case since 3 years now, 2.5 years, since ever the crafting system came out, I think. That has been always the case. In certain other cases, I think maybe some people crafted like boots in the past and also had the bracer or something, but that has always been the case. And I think they should just get rid of embellishments. Personally, I think embellishments at this point, they have given up on making embellishments good. And all embellishments just suck. So I think they should just say to give up on embellishments personally. Yeah. Okay. That's it. That was my rant.
Next one, we are back on my Demon Hunter because why do 90-second cooldowns not reset when the boss resets combat? They've added a bunch of tech to remove buffs from you or something like that when bosses get pulled, which is great. But they just reset 2-minute cooldowns, but not 1 minute 30-second cooldowns. So if you wipe on a boss right after you've pressed your 90-second CDs, or your 2-minute trinkets, which often don't reset as well, then all of a sudden you put up a pull timer and you're like, okay, let's do a /pull 30. And then somebody else is like, oh no, I need 50. I need a minute. And you're just like,
Guys, he is so right. Zeddy Tank, thank you very much for 3 months. It is the absolute best time of the day when you do trash and then you're all ready to pull the boss. And then you type pull 20 and then you hear, hey, Meeres, I need 55. What an experience.
Why? Why?
Young Godless, thank you very much for the tier 1.
Is it like this? What possible downside could there be to resetting 90-second cooldowns that doesn't already exist on resetting 2-minute cooldowns? I can't explain it. And finally, let's talk a little bit about dinars. I've already talked a lot about...
Not finally. Hey, what a thing, yeah. But yeah, I mean, they should just reset cooldowns, yeah. It's mainly about trash before bosses, yeah.
Dinars in my previous videos about the topic, so I'm not going to rant too much. In fact, I'm not going to rant at all about the heroic myth track stuff. Suffice it to say, I disagree with that, but I didn't want to rehash that in this video. The thing I'm confused about is why isn't there a catch-up mechanic if you fall behind
any catch-up
on dinars? So the way that it works is your first week of doing this weekly quest, you get 3 dinars. That week, so if you come and join the party late, you can do that quest, and then you can get the quest again and do it for 1 dinar and get to your 4th dinar. But aside from that, you can't do multiple dinars in a week. So right now, at the time of recording this, I'm on the week of the 5th dinar. If you haven't already started collecting your dinars now, you'll be behind anybody else who does it. You can do the first 2 weeks at the same time, but all of the future weeks are gated to be done on separate weeks than each other. Now, presumably, you're still going to be able to get to your 9 total dinars. You're just going to get there a week later than everybody else. But if somebody comes and joins rejoins the game, they take a couple of weeks off, and they come back in July, is it a big deal that they're going to be missing their dinar items for a little while? No, it's not a huge deal. But why, though? Why can't they just do the quest multiple times and catch up? What is the benefit of punishing those players?
He's like, why?
Of punishing somebody on their alt who didn't log in for a week on that character and now they're going to get their dinar item later. Is it a big deal? Are they going to need that 3rd dinar item? No. Are they going to feel bad? Yes. So why do they need to feel bad? That feeling bad is a downside that should be serving a game purpose of some kind.
Why?
And I don't think it is in this case. I think that there's no reason that we need to be making people feel bad. That's a similar argument to some of the other problems I have with dinars, but I think it's especially true when it comes to the fact that that weekly quest isn't just repeatable up to the point where everybody else could be with it. In particular as well, dude, one of my guildies just didn't turn in the quest by accident, and now he's just behind by a week as well. And
hey, by the way, everyone can, if ever Servo comes into the chat, by the way, he's also 1 week behind, okay? We can all laugh at him together.
It's just such an unfortunate
he's behind
thing. I know there's some conspiracy theories on Reddit that are like, hey, they intentionally made the Dinars suck in every possible way this season, so players would stop saying they wanted them. And I don't think that's what's going on here. I think this is just a case of like, hey, we didn't really think about it. Plus, we think that just getting your 1 per week is fine, and you'll eventually catch up to the cap of 9 because the cap is going to stop anybody else. So if it stops other people and doesn't stop.
Wait, isn't it 12, by the way? Am I cooked? Wait, it's 9. Oh! Wait, then I'm done in 4 weeks.
You'll eventually get to the same point as them. But in practice, I think that's just not the way that people engage with these sorts of systems, and how they feel about it is going to be if anybody misses even a single week, except for randomly that first week, that second week, which you could miss for free. But any of the other weeks, if you missed any of those other weeks, I guess it was the first week you could miss for free. If you came back on the second week, you could catch up. But anybody who's missed any of the other weeks, they are just going to feel bad, and I don't think they need to. So luckily, this is something that they can change pretty easily just by making that adjustment. And they could do it this week, next week, the week after that, and it would basically there'd be no downside. There's not yet any pain except for the psychic pain, but it's not like you could have earned your third dinar yet, or your second dinar yet, even at the time of recording this. So I think it would be a really good change for Blizzard to put this in this reset, a little bit of catch up for that. And then finally,
the psychic pain, I think that is for sure one of the things I will be using, in the future. What's happening? Make dinars suitable for plus players. Why do I need to kill mythic boss? Unlock its loot. Make it more locked. Endless topic, okay? It's fine, yeah? Heroic trinket and mythic trinket is very small difference, actually, if you look at it in a bigger picture. Psychic pain is very big on the dinars, for sure. In every department, I think, yeah.
The PTR. So there was an interview with Paul Cubitt and Maria Hamilton, and But Why Though? I'll put the link to the Wowhead post and the full interview down in the description below. But one of the things that happened here was discussion about various nerfs that happened, and one of the things they came up with was it would help us if we had more people on the PTR. Clearly that's true. They'll just always prefer to have more people on the PTR. And please come play PTR. And I know that.
Please come play PTR.
This has spawned a lot of kind of hate. There's been a lot of different lines of attack at Blizzard over this line. One of those is like, hey, you fired your whole QA department, and now you're trying to get us to come test your game for free, which I'm certainly somewhat sympathetic to that one, although I wouldn't say they fired their whole QA department or anything, but there have been, widespread reports of various QA testers getting laid off, although I would imagine that in a lot of cases those decisions aren't being made by the devs, and in a lot of cases the devs that are saying this are the same people that would not have chosen to fire or lay off or stop contracting with these various QA places.
That is probably very true, by the way. Yeah, like I have absolutely no idea how it goes on Blizzard, but I highly doubt the people developing the game, or 99% of those people, they're not deciding to kick the QA of the game that they're developing. Yeah.
The other one is, hey,
probably
we test a lot of PTR and we report these bugs and they go unfixed. And obviously that's a hard problem for Blizzard to fix, right? To some extent, they're going to get 60,000 reports every PTR, and it's a very hard job of filtering through those. And on the one hand, they're trying, you think about like, oh man, my class has had this bugged interaction where if I press Shaylun's gift twice, it does a lot more healing. But that doesn't break the game in the way that, the problem with, say, the Nightfall scenario at the start of patch 11.1.5 was just literally broken if there were more than like 5 people in the shard trying to do it for the first week of that. That's the kind of thing where it's like, oh, this is game breaking, obviously, for a part of the game that a lot of high-end players consider irrelevant, which is outdoor world content. They would instead consider the class bugs and stuff to be more important, but those are less like game breaking, right? And so Blizzard would really like people to come and test the PTR, especially for stuff like stress testing things, like the Nightfall scenario, right? But even stuff like the class bugs, I think that there's definitely a lot of upside on Blizzard's end if you go into like every single class Discord, there's usually a list or like a pinned comment in one of these channels that's like, hey, here's all the known bugs with our spec. Is it true that Blizzard is probably pretty aware of most of these and they're just lower priority or, hard things to fix? Maybe, but certainly fixing those I think would help players feel like their PTR testing was more important. And reporting bugs with upcoming content is something where very often we will know about the bugs that are going to be in the game for quite a long time during the PTR test. We will know about important. And reporting bugs with upcoming content is something where very often we will know about the bugs that are going to be in the game for quite a long time during the PTR testing. But I don't really want to complain too much about that because I feel like that's just natural, like, live service game prioritization of your of very limited resources that they have. Obviously, a lot of us can be looking at this and be like, well, they're a $7 trillion company and, you know, they can't afford to spend $30 more on another QA tester or whatever. Obviously, those numbers are not real, but people make those sorts of arguments. But I'm very sympathetic to the idea that, like, yeah, Blizzard is going to try and do, you know, more with less, right? And certain types of non-game breaking bugs existing is to be expected. If they want more people to come play PTR, though, they could do something, and this would be, like, in particular, if they want stuff like Nightfall.
Wait, is he gonna cook something, guys? Let's see what he has to cook. I will say something at the end.
To get stress tested more, they could give us a reason to do so beyond just helping out the multi-million-dollar company out of the goodness of our heart, or being a content creator. That's another reason that people actually go do this, is some of the big content creators will go and actually try and get footage of this for their videos or whatever. But aside from that, why would some normal person who's playing World of Warcraft be like, hey, do I want to log in and play WoW? Or do I want to go test the Nightfall scenario, which I'm going to want to do exactly the same amount of times so that I can get the Flames Radiance rep that's the reward I care about when it actually comes out? Do I just want to do it an extra time without those rewards? No. But what if Blizzard put a reward there? There are rewards that Blizzard gives you that incentivize you to, like, go do MDI time trials. You get a banner for doing that. That's really sick. What if there were just banners for doing a certain amount of PTR testing each cycle around? Now, is that something where me saying that is making certain collectors wince because they're like, oh no, then I would actually go do PTR and not enjoy it? You know, yeah, maybe, but at least Blizzard would accomplish the objective of getting enough people to maybe stress test these things that otherwise are going untested and then launching in a truly game-breaking that's kind of damaging to the more casual player base, which, as always, is a very important part of the player base that often gets missed, especially in discussions from high-end players and content creators such as myself. Maybe, yeah, so maybe that would be worth doing. I don't know. Just a thought on the come play PTR thing. Anyways, that's going to be it for this video. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Again, all these things are said from a place of I really like this game, and I think there's some low-hanging fruit that they can fix to make this game a lot better. But I think it's already in a really good place in a lot of ways. The raids, the dungeons recently have been great. I've been having a lot of fun this expansion. So, you know, a lot of these are nitpicks, but that's my job. I'm gonna nitpick. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think. Let me know what things I missed down in the comments below. See you in the next one.
Hey, great video, guys. Make sure to go to Dratnos, like the video. It was an absolute banger. Yeah. So first of all, guys, the PTR situation, okay? I think the biggest thing about PTR is, in my opinion, there is so many easy things that they can fix that don't require, like, some crazy investigation. I think that's what Dratnos said as well. Like, a best example is class bugs and other things, where you just basically go into the class discords, you check the PTR situation, and you just get all the bugs as a developer, and you can just fix them. Yeah. Or you go and talk to the theory crafters or the class Discord owners. You send them a DM and say, yo, how is Druid doing this patch? Any issues? And then I can tell you, these people, they will send a wall of text of issues to the developer, and they're like, okay, we can fix that. You know, it would be so easy to get that data, I feel like, at least on class bugs, personally. I think game bugs, to be honest, I don't know how much Blizzard is getting. Yeah. In terms of bug reports or whatever, probably horrendous job, by the way, to do and filter out this stuff, okay? Like, that must be a horrendous job, yeah? But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's really weird that some of these things are going live how they go live, I guess. And I think that's what upsets people. Because there's a lot of things that doesn't really matter if they go live. If there's like some small bug and then they fix it at one point, I mean, who cares? Like, it's a game. It's not going to be 99.9% perfect when it launches, right? But there are some bugs. Like, the game comes live, it's completely broken. And you're like, okay, how does that happen? You know what I mean? That's crazy, to be honest. Yeah. But if like there's some random mob stuck somewhere or doesn't give one loot, I mean, they can fix it, right? It's fine. But like some whole things like features not working or whatever, I think that's just weird, right? That's the main issue I think people have with it. Yeah. Literally every class has a current PTR bug section. Yeah, I think so as well. I think especially for class bugs or whatever, it would be so easy for Blizzard to fix those. Yeah. Okay. Did you get a cut of the prize money? No, I got 0. Also, by the way, that is basically the end. I will yeah, that's it with the video. Again, make sure to check out Dratnos' video, Absolute Legend ranting for like 40 minutes or whatever. That's it.